I love you.
What is going on, everybody? This is Mike Hughes, and you're listening to Mike on the Mic, a.k.a. the Shy Kid and everything Chicago sports-related podcast. I'm excited to get down on St. Patrick's Day. We're going to be talking Chicago Bears, Caleb Williams, the number 1 overall pick. And, of course, if you watch the title of this episode, Justin Fields trade updates. Now, obviously, we understand yesterday an official deal has occurred between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears. A 2025 6th-round pick, which if Justin Fields plays over 50% of the snaps in 2024, it will turn into a 2025 4th-round pick. But Ian Rappaport reported today, which, this isn't the biggest news in the world. It's not super breaking news. This isn't going to detrimentally change the way we look at guys like Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears organization, but it's definitely significant news. We were told that the Chicago Bears had 4 other teams invested in Justin Fields, and Justin Fields and his camp and representatives said, no way, we don't want to go there. It has to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. That was the perfect situation for Justin Fields. According to Ian Rappaport, the Chicago Bears had better offers, better draft capital coming in return for Justin Fields other than the Pittsburgh Steelers, potentially even 2024 draft capital. And the Bears said, nah, we're going to do right by him. We're going to send him where he wants to go and send him on his way and hope that maybe he can potentially make it work at some point in time in Pittsburgh. Now, a lot of people who I've seen all over social media right now say that it's a class act. And then other people say that, we should have just took the bang for our buck. We should have got the most value possible. It's a 1-year deal regardless. Let Fields figure that out in free agency. I like the move. I love the move by Ryan Poles. Ryan Poles has always been a straight up guy, a straight shooter. He said it on March 2nd, when we were looking at the combine and he was going into interviews, he said he's going to do right by Justin Fields. And that's exactly what he did. You dragged him through the mud. Ryan Poles put Justin Fields in a situation where there was very, very small margin for success. It was probably I would say if any of the 32 quarterbacks in the league, starting quarterbacks, went into the 2021-2022 Chicago Bears, I would say maybe 10% of them could be over 500 and have success. That's just being real. I mean, you get drafted by a completely different GM, and then the following year in your year 2, you have everybody from Khalil Mack to Akeem Hicks to, Robert Quinn. Every single receiver you had in Allen Robinson and company are all gone. Your offensive coordinator and head coach are gone. He was in a shitty situation. And I think Ryan Poles understood that. He never made excuses. He wasn't a Kenny Pickett, complaining about anything, saying he wasn't willing to play. Justin Fields was ready to throw down all the time. He was super supportive of Tyson Bagent. He understood the Andy Dalton and Nick Foles era. He was always the most mature guy in the room. And I think they wanted to do right by him. I love this, and as much as I would love for the Chicago Bears to have gotten a 2024 pick for Justin Fields, whether it was a 6th-round pick, a 7th-round pick, or a 3rd-round pick, I would have loved it because I just felt like when, obviously we watched the Commanders trade picks and Sam Howell to acquire a 2024 3rd-round pick. Then you see Kenny Pickett is worth a 2024 6th-round pick from the Philadelphia Eagles. And then Fields isn't even in this year's draft class. He goes into 2025. That's how low ball they got it for. Robert Griffin III, RG3 even said today, the Pittsburgh Steelers robbed the Chicago Bears in broad daylight on St. Patrick's Day weekend. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy. And I love that Ryan Poles dealt Justin Fields on St. Patrick's Day weekend because everybody in Chicago was too plastered to be able to be mad about it. Everybody was either crying or cheering. You're either crying because Justin Fields is gone or you're cheering because the Bears are going to draft Caleb Williams number 1 overall. But I'm curious to what that other team was. You know what I mean? And I want to adjust a couple comments because I could see them. Some people are saying, how did the Steelers rob the Bears for Justin Fields? Brother, it is a 6th-round pick a year from now for a guy who was once thought out to be a top 2 quarterback in his draft class, for a guy who's rushed over 1,000 yards in a single season, a guy who's broken NFL single game records. Like, I'm not saying he's a great quarterback, but I'm saying, you gave up less for Justin Fields and other teams gave up more for Sam Howell and Kenny Pickett. So that's where I'm coming from with that. But I'm curious to see what teams were involved. I would imagine if I had to name 3 teams right now, I think the Philadelphia Eagles were definitely one of them. You know what I mean? Obviously, they were interested in Kenny Pickett, so they wanted to bring in someone like that. Obviously, the dual threat offense that they can have, wildcat wise, or the tush push would be insane between Jalen Hurts and Justin Fields. I wouldn't know what to do in that backfield on top of Saquon Barkley. I mean, that would just be disgusting. Atlanta, maybe. I don't see it after signing Kirk Cousins, but maybe that was one of the original conversations to see what the worth of Justin Fields was, and if he was willing to be a backup. And then one my buddy mentioned in our fantasy football group chat that I kind of like the idea and concept of is the Miami Dolphins. I think the Miami Dolphins could have potentially looked at Justin Fields as a backup quarterback. Tua Tagovailoa obviously clears, at this point in time, and he's going to be the starting quarterback. But if, Mike McDaniels had a backfield of A-Chain and Mostert and Justin Fields with a wide receiver core of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, I think you have a recipe for success there. Especially if you're in a wildcat offense, you're just trying to do some RPOs or trying to do some play actions on the run. Tua is not the most mobile guy, and you don't want to put him in positions to where he can get laid out. So I definitely think that would be a cool concept, but I don't think Fields would want to go there because he obviously knows this is the contract year. He's trying to make bank. He's trying to show that he can be the number 1 guy. So it definitely wouldn't make sense for him to want to go to Miami. But I think it's interesting. It definitely is interesting. It's a cool conversation to see Ryan Poles actually doing right by players. And I think it's important. It's key when we really talk about like free agents that want to come here. Keenan Allen, who wasn't done right in Los Angeles, comes to Chicago and they already tell him off rip, yeah, we're going to try to extend you and try to show you how much we appreciate and value you in the city of Chicago. You know what I mean? We're going to get you a Caleb Williams. We're going to have with DJ Moore and company. You're going to have other weapons, so you're not the focal point. You want other teams to understand, like, we want you to be in the best position possible. You send Robert Quinn to the Eagles. You know what I mean? You send Roquan Smith to the Ravens. You're sending teams not to turmoil, not to fail, not to hell to burn. You send them in places where they're going to have success while you're also getting compensation for them as well. So I'm totally for it. I think it really does matter. I think it's important when you look at, teams that are viewed as respecting not only themselves, but also the players that are within the organization, whether they're on the roster or not. You could have sent Justin Fields to purgatory. You could have sent him to the Denver Broncos. You know what I mean? You could have sent him to who's one of the worst teams in the league that we can just talk about. You know what I mean? You could have sent him to the Raiders. You know what I mean? But I think at the end of the day, it's an interesting conversation that he goes to Pittsburgh because that's exactly where he wanted to go. Personally, I felt like the place he would want to go is Atlanta. He'd want to go home. But I definitely get with Russ on a 1-year deal. And between the two, they're not even making over $5 million this season. So it's crazy to think, as Bears fans, in 2020, we found out Russell Wilson was available for trade towards the end of the season. And a lot of Bears fans wanted Russ. I remember, if I'm not mistaken, the rumor going around was that Ryan Pace offered, what was it? It was Kyle Fuller, multiple first-round picks, and another player, but I forget who the other player was. We could have got Russ, and we drafted Fields that year at 11. So for them to have both of them is crazy, and just for Arthur Smith to completely underutilize both of them is going to be so sad to watch. But Fields has an opportunity to potentially start. My boy Rob Scott, who I know was heard about this news last night, says I hope Fields goes crazy for the Steelers. Fields is also in a good position to learn from Russell Wilson. Say what you want, but Wilson is still a former champion. And not even that, Russell Wilson, people say what they want. I know he had a down year, but his down year doubled Justin Fields in touchdowns. He had 26 touchdowns and 8 interceptions off over 3,000 passing yards. Justin Fields had 2,500 passing yards, 16 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Like, at the end of the day, 3,000 yards, 26-8 touchdown interception ratio is very solid for Russell Wilson, especially when he's in a system where he doesn't flourish with Sean Payton and receivers like Jerry Jeudy who couldn't catch a cold. So I'm curious to see how he looks with guys like George Pickens, Pat, Najee Harris, TJ, and all of them. It's going to be a lot of fun, especially that Steelers defense, which is going to be banging. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Shout out to my boy Chach. He's a diehard OSU fan and Pittsburgh Steelers fan. He feels how I felt when the Bears drafted Justin Fields. We've been high on him since 2015. So, I understand, there's a lot of potential there, but let's get into it, man. Let's continue the conversations because I want everybody to know if you're new here, smack that follow button because this is not a Justin Fields fan page. This is a Chicago Bears fan page, baby. And I'm excited about this. We're going to be breaking it down. We're going to be having conversations about the Chicago Bears all year long, going live every day, covering it. Number 9 overall pick. A lot of people right now want to know what we're going to do with number 9. I think to this point right here, how do you feel about Keenan Allen? Why that's important with the number 9 overall pick is because I think that changes my opinion on it. Before Keenan Allen, I was in the boat of you're either drafting Caleb Williams and either Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze, or you're taking Marvin Harrison Jr. and at 9, let's Dallas Turner or Jared Verse, one of them, Jared Verse, one of them's going. So yeah, that's really where I was at. But now understanding we are 99.9% going to draft Caleb Williams. There's always that 0.1%. Always that 0.1%, and it is the Chicago Bears. So wouldn't be totally shocked if they took JJ McCarthy and broke my heart. I'm just kidding. But, I think at the end of the day, with number 9, because of the addition of Keenan Allen and Keenan Allen being a Mike Evans caliber player, 1,000 yards every single year guaranteed, coming off a career year in touchdowns and receptions, over 100 receptions and over 7 touchdowns on the year. I think you have to understand the combination between him and DJ Moore and Cole Kmet, the big trio, really, and DeAndre Swift, if you want to throw him in there, it is huge. And I'm still a little bit high on Tyler Scott. So I'm interested to see how that works for Caleb. So I don't think you necessarily have to go wide receiver at 9. If guys like Malik or Rome are available, I'm down to. I'm very interested in it. Again, you're not going to, like Ryan Poles said last year, you're not going to complete the puzzle in one offseason. It just doesn't work that way. This has to happen throughout time. So if you have to wait on that second pass rusher to pair up with Montez Sweat until the later rounds or even next year's draft, I completely understand that. I think the Bears right now, in my personal opinion, what I would do is either take Jared Verse or Dallas Turner at number 9 and draft Caleb Williams number 1 overall. You pair one of those pass rushers up with Montez Sweat to complete that defense. And then obviously Caleb Williams, being one of the most generational thought out prospects since Trevor Lawrence and Andrew Luck, he fixes a lot of holes. So a guy like Tyler Scott might look 10 times better than what he would look like with a guy like Justin Fields. So I'm curious to see what happens. Lily says, what if we traded for Justin Herbert? Well, here's what I would say about that. One, I don't see it happening, mainly because I think after just getting paid, Justin Herbert isn't going anywhere. I've heard Jim Harbaugh vocally speak about how big he is on a guy like Justin Herbert. He absolutely loves him, and I think that was a huge part to his decision into going to Los Angeles in the first place. It'll be interesting to see what potentially happens, and I'm not sure what the shelf life is going to be for a guy like Justin Herbert if they don't get him a supporting cast, if they don't give him an offensive line. But yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. And yeah, I know a lot of people are talking about we need mods on the TikTok. We need guys checking out these comments, and I definitely working on it. Definitely working on some guys who could be mods for a while. Make sure the chat's all right. But it's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be interesting, and I'm really excited to see what could potentially happen with the Los Angeles Chargers with the number 5 overall pick. You could see them go Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze, or somehow, some way, if the Arizona Cardinals don't take Marvin Harrison Jr. You know what I mean? Like, it's definitely possible, but outside of Rashawn Slater, that offensive line is absolute trash. Shout out Northwestern Rashawn Slater, Illinois' own. But no, I think at the end of the day, if I'm them, you have to go Joe Alt. You have to go one of those offensive linemen, the kid from Notre Dame, wherever. You have to go offensive line. And it sucks because there's so many great wide receivers in this draft class, but there's also good wide receivers going into the second round later in the first. So the Chargers aren't in a horrible situation. I still Listen, I still think at the end of the day, I know he's coming off of what, like 16 and a half sacks this year. Or not, no, that was Daniil Hunter. I forget how many sacks Khalil Mack had this year. I believe it was over double digits for sure. I believe he had over 12 sacks. But I still think at the end of the day, I would have moved on from Mack and kept Bosa. I would have kept Keenan Allen if I potentially could to extend him. So that's really where I was at. I think you lose Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, and Keenan Allen, and get Gerald Everett. I mean, you ever seen that final scene in The Fresh Prince where Will Smith's just kind of standing there and he's just looking around in an empty room? Like that has to be how Justin Herbert feels right now. But as for the Bears, man, we're going to continue breaking down Caleb Williams tape. There's a lot of different concepts. There's a lot of different conversations about guys like Caleb Williams and why it's hard to evaluate any quarterback in the NFL going into college, or sorry, any quarterback in college going into the NFL. It's really hard because you look at the defensive backs that they're going up against. This is no shade at Caleb Williams. Obviously, we already know what we think of him. He's obviously a God-gifted talent, and he's one of those high prospects that we're all going to be very high on. Taking away the emotional side of it and the ego, or whatever you want to call it, the mental side of Caleb Williams, if you look at his physical attributes, what he's able to do with the ball, I mean, he makes Patrick Mahomes, Jay Cutler-esque throws. Kid's an absolute monster. You know what I mean? So I think at the end of the day, you have to base off of the talent he's going up against. There's a lot of broken plays. There's a lot of busted coverages where you're seeing wide open wide receivers. I'm talking like 10 feet of separation between any defensive back, and they're getting touchdowns. So you have to take those things into account when you're evaluating them. Yeah, there's over 93 passing touchdowns, but how many of them were broken up plays? How many of them had wide receivers who had over 3 to 6 feet of separation compared to the NFL that's only going to have about 3 to 4 inches? You know what I mean? So I'm not saying every single play, is locked down from defensive backs in the NFL, but when you compare Pac-12 competition, especially defensively, compared to the NFL level of the Cleveland Browns or the Chicago Bears or the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Baltimore Ravens, you're going to have a feel for it. So, that's not to say Caleb can't make those throws. I've seen him make those throws in tight windows with guys like Jordan Addison and company. So I definitely do believe in him, but it's hard to evaluate every single play. Somebody said, K-Dog said, do you miss Fields? Of course I miss Fields. You know what I mean? Of course I miss Fields. Fields was an amazing guy. Fields was one of those guys that you were willing to run through a wall for. But at the end of the day, whether you're a fan, an athlete, or a teammate, you understand that it's a business. Just like DJ Moore said, and business is business, and you have to do what's best for the team. So I'm sure we're going to fall in love with Caleb very soon. I'm very sure that it's going to continue to get better. Like I said, at number 9, as of right now, I would likely take a pass rusher, either Jared Verse or Dallas Turner, unless guys like Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze are there. If they are there, I might be tempted just to take them. Might say, hey, listen, I get it. Maybe it's not the best decision in the world, but it's my decision. I want a three-peat. I want a 3 big trio wide receiver group on top of Cole Kmet and DeAndre Swift. You have DJ Moore, Malik Neighbors, and Keenan Allen, or Rome Odunze instead of Malik Neighbors. That would be insane. I was even on the same boat as like, hey, listen, if we don't go Caleb, I'll take Marvin Harrison Jr. at 2 or 3. If you trade down, get more picks, get Marvin. You have Marvin Harrison Jr., Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, Jared Everett, and DeAndre Swift with Justin Fields. That would have been, I don't even give a fuck if Tyson Bagent's QB1. We're putting over 20 points a game without a doubt. I mean, I think it's really dope. I think it's a lot of fun to have those conversations. Could you have 3 wide receivers and Marvin Harrison Jr., DJ Moore, and Keenan Allen? Is that the best big 3 wide receiver trio in the league? Is that better than Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd? You know what I mean? Like Julio Jones, AJ Brown, and Devontae Smith. Like, is that better? I don't know. Puka, Cooper. There's a lot of different ways it goes, man. I'm excited to see what could potentially happen, how it can break down, how we can continue to get better as a unit, as a team. But if you haven't already, make sure right now, you're already in here, you might as well do it. Smack that follow button, because we're going to be going live every single day, keeping you guys up to date with everything Chicago Bears related content. We have Caleb Williams' pro day at Hallis Hall in less than a week. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm about to get out of here though, so I do appreciate you guys tuning in. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Top of the morning. morning to ya. I hope you guys had an amazing day. We were at the parade today. I had my G baby jersey on. We were looking fleet. I was with my niece, my nephew, my sister, and my mom and my brother-in-law. It was an absolute blast. I hope everybody had a safe and happy Irish Spring Green weekend in the city of Chicago. Until then, I'll check you guys out later. This is Mike Hughes, aka the Shy Kid. You are listening to Mike on the Mic. Until then, peace. I love you.